hear
hear
you
me?
breaking out. Yes, we can hear you. You can hear us?
Yes. I'm working from
Fantastic.
my phone, just so you know.
All right, y'all. Well, we are live. So welcome everyone to Sisters for Harmony. We have been having some technical difficulties, but we are on and popping now, which is what matters. We are super excited to have Sannii Crespina-flores and Dr. Natasha Ramontal from medical tourism. So, welcome everyone to Sisters for Harmony. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Kathleen Walls, and I am joined with my co host, Miss Ruby Burke, and Brother Ed Amoja. So, how is everyone doing this evening?
We're
Good
good.
things.
Good.
Well, thank you.
All right, Brother Moja, I'm gonna pass it over to you so you can
Good.
open us as you always open us.
Mhm. Well, thank you, Dr. Walls. And so we want to greet everyone in the name of God and our ancestors in whose footsteps we most humbly walk. It is truly an honor to be here with you all today and to spread some words of joy, knowledge, and understanding as we step more into the 21st century. So, good evening, ladies. And hey, Ruby, how you doing? Dr.
I,
Walls,
well,
Sister Sana, and my Lucian partner, Dr. Natasha Ramontal, RN.
Hello.
All right, so for those who are, friends and fans of all of our shows, I always tell you the same thing. Make sure you got your notebook and your pen ready because something is going to be said that you want to make sure you capture. But before we go forward, we're going to take a moment and we're going to say happy belated birthday to Ruby, who
Hey,
just celebrated her birthday a couple weeks ago.
she's an
Happy
old girl
birthday.
now. Happy
Yeah.
birthday, Ruby.
Happy belated birthday, Ruby.
And she had, we having a little
oh,
lag,
thank you,
Ruby.
thank you, thank
You're getting a lag on your line, Ruby.
you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ruby. So tell us what you did last night, because I know our ladies here will be super entertained by your concert events.
I think she's frozen.
Is she
Yeah, I think
frozen?
so.
I went to see the Rick James play last night.
Ah,
I think everyone's frozen except me.
No, we can hear
Oh,
you now. You're going in and out.
Ruby, we might need you to slide out and come back in.
Can you hear us,
All right.
Ruby?
All right. I think she's gonna slide out and come back in.
It's that Rick James
It's that
energy
Rick
she brought.
James and right,
Yeah,
them froze
yeah.
her out. All right. Okay. I'll get her when she comes back in. All right. So I want to take a moment, have each of you introduce yourselves, and then Dr. Ramantal, I know you're with us for the first few minutes. So let me start with you. Reintroduce yourself. Let's level set.
sure. Thank you. So, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Natasha Ramontal, also known as the Medical Tourism RN. I'm not a physician, but I am a doctoral trained registered nurse. I've worked in the emergency department and the post anesthesia care unit for a number of years. But on my YouTube channel, I cover all aspects of medical tourism for Black women if they decide to seek healthcare or treatment abroad for anything from cosmetic surgery to cancer or fertility treatments. But whatever it's for, what I do is I educate and inform Black women to make so that hopefully they'll be armed with enough education about whatever conditions they may have or things they need to know, to make the most informed decisions about their own health care and have hopefully the best outcomes as well as the best experience.
Hmm. All right, Sana. Now I know this would be right up your league for you two to meet each other. Take a moment and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sannii Crespina-flores. I'm a native of Philadelphia. I am a teaching artist, filmmaker, author, and sculptor. Um, but I have had the pleasure and luxury of teaching all over the globe. And yeah, so this should be a quite an interesting conversation. Because I run into so many expats
Mm.
that have, moved abroad that are Black women. and building their businesses and navigating the new health systems. Yeah. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Mm-hmm. And you also refer to yourself as an artist doula.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A creative doula here in Philadelphia. Well, not just Philadelphia, but I am very, very interested in seeing us all win. So I help navigate landscapes into birthing whatever your creation is, um, with resources, connective tissues, with networks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, advising.
Yes. Yes. All right, Dr. Ramontal. So tell us some things. It's springtime. People are getting ready, be it spring break or going to be traveling for the summer. What are some things that people should know and be taking into consideration?
So, I mean, if people are traveling specifically for medical tourism, which is when anyone just travels outside their immediate jurisdiction for any type of health or wellness treatment or procedure, essentially what they need to know is one, typically people, at least Black Americans, whether it's females or not, they tend to leave for three reasons. And I coined it the 3 A's. They leave for medical tourism either because of accessibility, availability, or affordability. So when I talk about accessibility, it's like issues like insufficient or no healthcare insurance coverage. This is the only country where it's tied to your employment. Other places have subsidies or universal health care where it's widely used and they don't have to pay much or anything at all. Also, the accessibility issues in the US, like healthcare staffing shortages, that exists. And then some more systematic things like stigma and bias, they exist even in the medical community. So you'll experience discrimination based on race, immigration status, sex, gender, sexual orientation, all those things. But then you have some other accessibility issues like transportation, work-related barriers, and even cultural barriers like language, right? When we talk about availability, how long it takes you to get an appointment. Me, myself, it takes me 3+ months to get an appointment with my primary care physician. They are trying to push us towards using urgent care or these types of online virtual metadocs, those types of things. But those people don't tend to have a long-term relationship with you to know you a little bit more, but they are effective and useful. But still, you want someone who kind of knows you. And then also, there's a lack of focus on preventative care and wellness in the United States. It tends to be a very disease management centered approach rather than preventive medicine. And then the biggest thing, which you'll hear people talk about, is affordability. The reason why they even engage in medical tourism is because the cost of healthcare in the US is astronomical. And with medical tourism, Americans can actually save anywhere from 30 to 70%, depending on where you're going to go and what you're going to have done. So all of that is important. But when we talk about Black women in particular, if you are going to engage in medical tourism, something that I want to make sure you care about, the first thing probably is determining where you're going to go. And the reason I say that is because Black women need to consider how friendly that country is to Black women. How are Black women treated in that country? You want to know if there are any safety concerns. I always advise that you take someone with you that can serve as your advocate. If you have complications or you're unable to speak, it's important to have someone with you that will ask the right questions and remain on top of things. So you're going to want to know, are you going to a country where they look down on women also? And you as a patient, you're in your most vulnerable state. The last thing you need to worry about is if you're going to face any ill treatment, whether it's from staff, locals, whether you're recovering in a hospital, a hotel, recovery residence, whatever. And from a safety perspective as well, are you going to a country where a woman should always be accompanied by a male? This is something to think about, especially for certain communities like the LGBTQ plus community. So that is probably number one, just sort of determining where to go and how friendly they are to Black women. The other thing is just kind of thinking about a checklist for yourself. You know yourself best. So it's important that whenever you decide to go, visit your primary care physician and any specialists that you might be under their care for at least a month before flying out. And the things you're going to discuss are things like your overall health, you know, pre-travel checkup, discuss if you're pregnant or not, any known allergies, any pre-existing health conditions or concerns. And you may even get prescribed some medications ahead of time by your physician, just to ensure that you have those prescriptions that your clinician thinks that you should have. The other thing to consider with that is that a lot of medications that you take may not widely be circulated in other countries, or they may be under a different name. So take your prescriptions with you, okay? Medical conditions. This is really important that disproportionately affect Blacks or Black women. The reason that's important is if you have any pre-existing conditions, you want to make sure you see your specialist to make sure that that condition, you're sharing your plans of what type of treatment you intend to have, and ask if they have any concerns. If they do have concerns, write them down and ask these questions to the clinicians that you're communicating with in the country where you plan to have your procedure done. And this is really important because Blacks tend to have the highest rates of a lot of chronic illnesses anyway, and that's hypertension, diabetes, and other things that pertain to how you'll heal and any type of complications or side effects that you may encounter. So despite doing all the health history in advance and all of that, just consider those things, because something like as simple as a popular hypertension med, it can actually, there are some that are linked to worse heart health outcomes in Blacks with hypertension compared to whites. And if you're going to a place that either there are not many people that look like us, or they don't tend to treat many people that look like us, they're not going to know. So it's up to you to be your own advocate and share this information ahead of time before you even go under any anesthesia, so you can say, what about this? And what type of medications are you considering for me because I have this or that particular condition? Okay. Yeah, it's really important. And then anemias. One of the things I want to talk about with anemias is, you know, it's pretty common, but Blacks are actually 3 times more likely than their white counterparts to have anemia in the US. And specifically when it comes to sickle cell anemia, which is an inherited gene primarily affecting Blacks, your clinician needs to be made aware of this condition and how to appropriately provide you with care if you were to have an episode called a sickle cell crisis, which is extremely painful. Okay, it can block all the blood to flow to your organs and deprive you of blood and oxygen, leading to some life-threatening conditions. Again, if you go somewhere where they don't treat Blacks, or many Blacks don't live there, they may not be equipped to handle it. So you just want to make sure you're mentioning these things ahead of time, you know, so they're aware. And then some things like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's a hormonal disorder, but Black women are disproportionately affected by PCOS, and it affects Black women more severely than our white counterparts. Black women with PCOS may have higher risk of cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and they also experience excessive weight gain, which leads to obesity. And that's obviously a major risk factor for fertility or any type of surgery. So that's something to consider if surgery is part of what you're going for. And then keloid scarring. You know, Blacks are 7 times more likely than our white counterparts to get keloid scarring. And for that reason, you may want to visit with a dermatologist specializing in Black skin to discuss your procedure, so they can share some things that you need to know for a specific surgical procedure that you're having if you're going to go for that reason. And then surgical prep. You know, everyone that's going for surgery, they ask you not to wear makeup, lotion, powder, deodorant, all those things. And they also say nail polish. I say it's really important for Black women to not wear or to remove any nail polish that you have, so that the doctors and nurses can see your true color of your nail beds during surgery and also after surgery. Because there are a number of studies over decades that really revealed that your skin pigmentation, your melanin, actually plays a role in the pulse oximeter that they put on your finger, which it's an electronic device that measures the blood saturation the oxygen saturation in your body, your red blood cells.
Wow.
And it's typically placed on your fingertip, but the pulse ox, they tend to overestimate the amount of oxygen that a patient with darker skin may have in their blood. So what happens is, this is important because you can be short of breath, but your oxygen saturation levels appear to be normal on the device, and it's dismissed as, oh, you're just anxious, your anxiety, when you actually may be having a true respiratory event. So that's something that I want you all to be really cautious of. And another one is hair. Specifically for us, if you're going to go for any medical tourism, try your best not to wear any wigs or hair pieces. And if so, make sure that it is human hair and not synthetic, because these are highly flammable and they actually can create a risk of fire during surgery. Your surgery can be canceled if you arrive with hair products. So human hair would be a good option, but I just suggest that if you're going to wear hair, go ahead with braids. It's easy. Or if you have a teeny weeny afro, whatever it may be. But try your best to stay away from those pieces when it comes to that. And then
I'm gonna pause you on one second.
Okay, sure.
That was a whole lot. Sannii, what you got going through your mind?
For me, you're giving all of this information, and I'm like, she needs a dedicated space for it. Like, and also create a travel journal for Black women with all of these concerns that you have, that that Black women, Black folk can access, so they can.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel has all of that, and it's in that kind of form. But I can certainly think about creating like a book, like you mentioned, like even an e-book, a travel checklist for medical tourism.
And then how to have also their medical information on their phone, like specifically with iPhone. Not sure of anybody else's operating system, but there's a section where you can list all of your medical that can easily and readily access. And now that we can tap each other's phone to share that information, the person that you're traveling with will have the same information that you have about you.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because we talked about, I think the last time I was on here, there was a woman who traveled with her 2 daughters who were underage to have a cosmetic surgery. She had poor complications, was in a coma. The kids could not get in her phone to call any family members abroad to have them send money to come out there. Nothing. They got kicked out of the Airbnb because she was still in a coma. So I would never advise that you take a minor if you're going to take people, but 2, also making sure that you have access to whoever the person is traveling with you has access to all your health information as well, your emergency information, all of that. Yeah, it's critical.
Your medical and your current physician. Important too.
Absolutely.
Travel and then omit.
Say that again, Sannii, you blinked out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said people will travel and then omit to their primary.
Yeah.
Certain things had, and then there's that conflict in medication. There's a slowing process for the healing. But I would really, really love for you to have a journal, because I know several groups that take young women abroad for their first travel experience, passport, but for them to get into habit of, not only do you have your checklist for what you're supposed to pack, but now you have this checklist that you physically can handle to start training you how to care for yourself while traveling.
That's such a good point, because I was thinking about when I went to Ghana and I was there for 2 months teaching, and I got sick, and I was so dizzy for so many days, and I was nervous and scared about going to a hospital in a foreign land for me. And it was like, do I have malaria? Now, mind you, I had all my shots, I was taking all my pills regularly, and I have a very sensitive system. And it was just like, what in the world am I going to do? Now, luckily, I had some people over there, and I was able to say, I'm not feeling well, but let me give it a couple days. And if it hasn't settled itself, this is what we got to figure out what I'm going to do. Right. And thank goodness it settled itself. But having medical care, knowing what you need, right, knowing what you're allergic to. Luckily, I was in still a frame of mind where I could share what I needed and let people know how I was feeling each step of the way. but very much to the story of the young lady, of the lady with the two young people. They might not know what their mother's allergic to,
Exactly.
right? And you're and you're already navigating language, you're already navigating cultural differences. And Sana, to your point, when we pack, we don't pack those types of things. We're thinking, I'm just gonna, for me, I'm packing my bathing suit. That's all I that's all I really care about. But listening to the realities that having your passport, having this medical information, having these contacts is just as important as having that passport. And I had never thought about nail color. I never thought about the weaves, the wigs, the extensions, and so forth. Ruby, you're a big time traveler. What's going through your mind as you're hearing these things?
As you were saying that, I'm thinking that would be nice to have that as part of the passport, to have that
Mm-hmm.
medical information, for them to have a section in the back of your passport. And that way you always have it with you when you're traveling abroad.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
agree. You
I've
ain't know
never
you was
been
gonna come on
sick.
and get an assignment, did you?
No, but that's good. If there's a need for it, and you see, it's just something that I have to tackle because honestly, it's about impact,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to make sure that people really, because honestly, we're the most neglected group. And if it's something that we have to take care of ourselves. So if it's something that I have to create, then fine. That's not a problem. It's carving out the time to get it done.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. I think it's
Thank you.
great.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Sana.
What I was going to say is once you created it because you have your YouTube site
Mm-hmm.
already sending out this information, then you look at, even if you don't do it, doula stuff, people come in and say, well, here's a list of expats. Here's a list of people who, because they have these sites, these chat groups, this, that, and the third. And then that's who you market to. And then they will, share your information because it's so vital and important,
Mm-hmm.
especially since you are now having more students taking gap years.
Yeah.
You are having these groups. There's the B Girl World. There are 4 that I work that actually take young girls who have never traveled outside of their city and take them abroad, right? But in taking them abroad, these young ladies they're learning how to act. They're learning, how to navigate social norms in other countries. But who's advocating for them, especially since COVID is still a thing? This new cough and cold that just seems to vitalize itself after 7 days. When you think it's over, it's not over. So then now you have someone who is telling you this is, and includes simple stuff like this is how you navigate a pharmacy. Because the pharmacy in Paris is different
Mm-hmm.
from Morocco,
Mm-hmm.
right? But to know what particular decongestant to look for, it
Mm-hmm.
should still be the same
Mm-hmm.
when you're reading ingredients. Those little tiny things, you're saving a life. You are ensuring someone's ability to advocate for themselves. Because
Right.
they're equipped with this knowledge that you possess, that you formatted and put in a small. It could be the same size as a passport.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But for them to be able to check it off, grown women too, because you have the ones who are now empty nesters, men who are empty nesters,
Mm-hmm.
who have gotten to a point where they're saying that now is my time.
Mm-hmm.
But my time still needs to be navigated a certain way because, especially this particular group, because this particular group is now the ones that you're speaking of that have the hypertension medication,
Mm-hmm.
the medication. There are certain medications that can't cross borders,
Right.
because they're made here.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of information is invaluable.
Yeah, that's vital. Dr. Ramontal, I know you said you had one more piece that you wanted to make sure that you shared tonight before we shift over to Sannii? So y'all can already see she's an advocate, right? So
That's good. That's good. Yeah, no, it was along the same lines of hair, just outside of synthetic and that type of thing, radiology. If for any reason you are traveling for medical tourism for a health issue that requires radiological images of your head, make sure the clinician is aware of how to properly read your images if you wear braids, twists, or locks. And that's because an intelligent third-year medical student at Temple University, she was leading a research project to educate physicians on how to properly interpret x-rays of Black patients with braids, twists, and locks. So she's educating her mentor, who's a white radiologist, who wanted to build that knowledge base. And the reason that's important is because she explained that whenever there's something that obscures an image on a scan, the physicians call it an artifact. And artifacts are actually common from Black hairstyles because they appear as opaque squiggles, which can be mistaken for signs of disease. And so there's not a lot of medical literature on it. So it leaves physicians room to make errors. And it leads them to direct patients to get more testing. So it's not only costly to you and an inconvenience, but it also potentially exposes you to unnecessary radiation. So if you decide to go abroad for medical tourism and you're traveling to a country that, again, treating patients that don't look like us, make sure that you're armed with that information and more of these tips so that you have the best outcomes.
I want to add one more tip to the head for X-ray or CT scans, whatever. The oil you put in your hair, especially if they're putting I want to call them the nodes, like for EEGs, right? They cannot adhere if you like freshly oiled your scalp.
Right.
So
keep that in mind too.
That's real talk. Real talk. Thank you, Dr. Ramontal, for all of that. Brother Moja, anything you want to say and or ask before we get ready to pass that mic?
No. I'm just listening and just smiling because I'm interested. As a government contractor, there's a lot of those things you're talking about that we have to go through if you're going overseas. And like the military does it for their reasons for the military people, but if, as a government contractor, a lot of the primary contracted companies go through all that stuff with you.
Okay. We have a
So that,
question. I'm sorry, Brother Moja.
I know. So what she said is so important that now, she's giving the information that government contractors and the government use already. So now it's giving it to the everyday people who just want to travel either for medical reasons or just for leisure reasons. These are things that you should be looking at.
Yeah. Over on the Instagram side of life, we have a question. Leah Ernest said he and his daughter are planning to travel to Vietnam in June of 2025. It's a senior trip. He said he's requesting your advice. Would you recommend he go to your YouTube channel, or would you recommend that he contact you directly for some guidance?
He can go to my YouTube channel, but he said he's traveling to Vietnam for a senior trip. Is there something specific that he was interested in? Because generically, what I tell people is no matter why you're traveling, even if it's for leisure, wherever you plan on staying, look up the nearest two hospitals, major hospitals closest to wherever you're staying, so you know if there's an emergency or some urgent matter, you can kind of research that ahead of time. If it's something specific, he can certainly reach out to me, and I read all my comments and respond. So if it's something you want me to cover, please feel free to just drop that information in the comments, and I'll make sure that I cover that.
And what's the best way? Now, for people who are on YouTube, when you look in the write-up, if you come over to YouTube, Ask Dr. Walls 525, and you look under the write-up of this show, there will be links directly to all of her pages as well as to Sannii's pages as well. But go ahead and give it to them because, like I said, they're on Instagram, and we also have some people on LinkedIn watching as well.
Sure. So on all platforms, I'm Medical Tourism RN, and that's LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. But YouTube is Medical Tourism RN 812. So you guys can access more tips there that are generic or specific to some countries as well. And then I also take requests. Sometimes people ask me, could you do a video and cover this particular country or this disease process? And I do that as well.
Fantastic.
Dr. Walls,
Yeah.
also all the things. One thing we should add on that: if you're going to a foreign nation for whatever reason, always make sure you check with the U.S. Embassy in that nation, in that country. They have a lot of information to give you if you're going overseas. Something that was drilled into my head when I was working. Like if you're going to a foreign country, check in with the U.S. Embassy once you get there. Let them know you're in country, and if there's something happening, like disease-wise or something happening, they'll let you know. You can ask them; they'll let you know, because that is one of the jobs of the U.S. Embassy is to let U.S. citizens who are traveling overseas to any country, to let you know what you should be aware of in that country.
Yeah, they have a link actually for that you can fill out before you even leave, entering the dates that you'll be there. You can enter as much information as you want, like if you know where you're staying and all of that. So they know how long you'll be there, where you are. So if say there was civil unrest or a natural disaster, they know, hey, we have someone that was here.
Right.
We need to check for them.
Yeah. And Lee Ernest, I know you're over on Instagram right now. If you look in my stories, you'll see a link for her page on Instagram as well. But also, like I said, for people who are listening, come on over to YouTube to Ask Dr. Walls 525. Be sure to hit subscribe, and you will see all of her information as well as Sannii's information in the write up underneath their bios. So, all right, Dr. Ramontal, you are more than welcome to stick around and hang with us as we transition over into Sannii.
Sure, I'd love to hear.
Oh, fantastic. Yay. All right, come on, Sannii. Let's I had the pleasure of meeting Sannii at I'm trying to remember, was it Frederick Yane? Was it the harmonica concert that we met? It was some art event we went to.
Mm-hmm.
And she and I just hit it off and just started giggling and laughing and playing. And that was years ago at this point.
Somebody
And
lifetime.
but exactly. And then I got a chance, Lee Ernest, excuse me, side note, Dr. Ramontal said this information is enlightening. Thank you. So she says, you're welcome. Well, I guess you saw her. So, but so, and then I got a chance to know more of what Sannii does. And and so we connected artistically on her Do Remember Me project
Mm-hmm.
initially. But then she does so much and has grown in so many ways. So, Sana, give them a little flavor of what you do, and then let's talk about specifically your book of poetry for a little while, as well as the additional work that you're doing right now.
So we did meet, and the first thing we did partner, and you were a huge supporter of, was the Do Remember Me project. Do
Hmm.
Remember Me is still around.
Tell
It,
them about it.
it's a global youth initiative that connects Philadelphia youth with youth all over the globe to uh, create media that matters to them. And then I give them a platform and they can edit it. And we do annually go to the UN in New York. A lot of times it's our students' first time out of Philadelphia, but they take their collaborative work and it gets shown at International Youth Day in August at the UN, which
Hmm.
is dope. Um, then there's the Yawrum Collective, which is a collective of Black and Brown women who come together to support each other to complete their film projects, to complete their writing projects, whatever they're working on. You know, we make sure that we support each other. And that's how I got the doula title. um, and because I really believe that there's a way for all of us to have what we dream, right?
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to what we're creating, because that is part of our purpose. It is
Hmm.
part of our legacy work. I'm currently teaching Afrofuturism from my home in California with Justice for My Sister. which I really, really dig because Afrofuturism in its essence is seeing us in the future and guaranteeing that we see us in the future. Um, and not letting our narrative be shifted. And in this current climate with the rewriting of history, um, a lot of our history is in danger of being absent. So with steampunk and Afrofuturism, it's a very, very beautiful way to ensure that we are honoring our dreams. Um, I wrote the book. It's called Machetes Are Formed in Soft Rivers. Um, it is a book of poetry and short stories. The short stories are starting to be read on a podcast. It's on a couple of platforms. It's Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and I forget what the last one is, so forgive me for that. But it's a way to hear the stories because I've been doing a lot of reading of the stories at events. So it's a way to help me do it, get more comfortable with reading in public. But yeah, the stories are about Black women and just a beautiful thing to write about us. So I could do that always. And it's being currently optioned for a series. So I'm excited.
We're excited about that too. So, as y'all can hear, I mean, she is an artist through and through and an advocate through and through. And I'm going to back up to the first project that she talked about, the Do Remember Me project. What touched me and was amazing to me about that project was the global initiative and the dispelling of myths. So
Absolutely.
right? So you would have these teenage boys in from North Philadelphia on the computers Skyping. So this is going back before Zoom was a thing, right? Skyping with teenage boys in various countries around the world. Different Sana, what are some of the countries you worked with in Africa?
We've done Uganda, we've done Ghana, and we've done Nigeria. Oh,
Hmm.
because I
And
was
what
at
was the other one?
Morocco because I was actually
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So we've also done Costa Rica, we've done Canada, we've done Kazakhstan.
Hmm.
Very, very interesting.
Hmm. You did France too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we've
Hmm.
done Paris is a partner. Nigeria is a permanent partner.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, is I've talked to everybody,
Yeah.
everywhere, somewhere. Australia, we've done Australia.
Hmm.
I think having them talk, the conversation always comes to heritage, culture. Um, then they get into education. Then they get into to what it's like to be them in their country.
Hmm.
How and then they start encouraging each other in forms of advocacy. And one of the ways that I think advocacy works best for young people is through the social platforms. But
Hmm.
then again, that's something that needs to be taught,
Hmm.
right? So I have the pleasure of being able to implement that too, like how to use social media in a way that you're advocating not just for yourself, but for your family, for your, your country.
Hmm.
Um, and it's beautiful to see that some of the ones that were from the very beginning have become artists,
Hmm.
media makers, have screened in festivals. That was one of the reasons why I had the Uninhibited Muse Festival, to make sure that young people's art was seen without the fee, because there's
Hmm.
really a fee when and you spend all of this money or all your resources trying to pull the film together, and then you have to pay and hope that someone will show it. So
Hmm.
it made it possible for them to have a space to show it.
Hmm. And
Um,
I'm trying to remember so the Do Remember Me project is a documentary. Are people still able to see it on YouTube or have you put it on a different platform?
Nope, it's still on YouTube. The world,
I
or as small as you make it.
Yeah, I encourage you to watch it. I mean, I had you. She came out to a school that I was affiliated with, and the teachers watched it, and it was life changing for a lot of them. One of the biggest scenes that is just frozen in my head is when the teenage boys from Paris, are
Mhm.
asking the boys from North Philadelphia, what part of Africa are they from?
Right,
And they're like, no, we're not from Africa. We're from North Philadelphia. And they were like, no, like we understand that, but what part of Africa are you from? And they're like, we're not from Africa. And they said, no, your parents, your grandparents, your so, and they're like, we have no idea. And they said, what do you mean you don't know where you come from?
right, and that when that took that particular class down a rabbit hole, so that we could start looking at what genealogy looks like. And there's
Mhm.
this beautiful project on social media called Project, the Brewster English Project. And this young man lists a phenomenal, like it's a lengthy list of resources for African descendants of, the enslaved, to have as resources: census,
Mm,
old articles, um, the founds, like after the Civil War, where formerly enslaved were posting in newspapers to find their loved ones.
mm.
All of those things, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful list of resources.
Wow. Wow. Ruby, what's going through your mind? What questions you have or comments?
Oh, why pick on me?
Right.
Um, in, in reference to your book, what was your inspiration? I am because I mean I love hearing people with poetry, and Brother Yamoja introduced me to that. And so, what was your inspiration in reference to your poetry and writing about us?
So I've been, I'm a writer foremost. That's my first language. That is my first artistry. Um, I've been writing professionally since I was 12, um, because I would go out and speak, and read my work. As a Up until my 30th birthday, I would write the things that I could not properly articulate to the people who were entrusted to love and care for me, or whom I was supposed to love and care for,
Mhm.
right? And then I had decided that I was going to write about sorrow anymore, because I couldn't be just a body of sorrow navigating this world. I needed to know what joy was. And it's interesting because I tell my sons all the time that when you don't know what joy is, and all of the Abrahamic religions tell you that at the end of this life, there will be paradise, there will be joy, there will be this heaven. If you don't know what joy looks like, if you've never felt what love feels like, how would you know what it is? Because your spirit is still the same spirit, it's just transitioned. So, in order, these should be things that we feel that are a right, just able to eat, being able to have a roof over your head. You should feel that you have a right to know what joy is. You need to have a right to know what peace is. You need to have a
Mhm.
to know what these things feel like. So, in order to experience them, the easiest way for me is to observe us. I will go sit on a park bench and watch this love letter and this love story unfold, and then I will write about it.
Mhm.
And those are the inspirations for the stories in the book.
Mhm. Thank you. One of the things I know, and I'm going to ask Brother Moja and Dr. Ramontal if they have any questions after I ask this. People are listening, and you are an artist, and you have managed to make a life out of being an artist. And I know a lot of times people will say, "Oh, it's a hobby. Go get a real job." How have you been able to do this?
I raised two boys being an artist.
Yeah.
God. For me, it was having a serious conversation with myself after determining this is what I was going to do. What could I live without?
Mm,
Because see, what I could live without made space for growing the art. So if I had to take SEPTA for a year or two, but it would allow me to grow the art enough to buy a car, then I would do that.
mhm,
I've never had a problem with taking contract work because I also realized that my particular business, my particular form of art has a lull time. That's Thanksgiving through Valentine's Day. So that means that I need to either have enough money saved or have that B that I can fall back on, which is usually writing for other folks. Um, and that's what I do during that period of time.
mhm,
Then there are the options of funders, of patrons, um, investors. I've negotiated all three arenas to keep this art boat afloat. Like I'll take a back to teach for school, which become training ground because then you are reminded of a couple of things: who you're doing it for. You're watching the change in your community because you're present. You are growing this knowledge not just with yourself but with the group that you're working with.
mhm,
It becomes a partnership. Um, so those are the things that have helped me do this. So I don't have a problem taking a part time contract teaching because I also avoided babysitting fees because I took my boys with me to wherever I was teaching.
mhm,
Um, and it was interesting because I had, by the time they were 14 and 15, they got their first grant from the city of Philadelphia, right? Um, so they were learning that these things and these resources are available to you as well. I think what you think you gave up, you will be able to afford later.
mhm,
It won't feel like a luxury. Um, and I also think that it is absolutely important. One of the biggest lessons I was teaching in the last 2 years when I was helping young artists apply for funding,
mhm,
they kept forgetting to pay themselves.
Mhm.
They kept forgetting to write that line that says director, writer,
mhm,
producer. Where's your money? You still have electric, gas, phone. Where's you need to write yourself into your dream too.
mm,
So that's how I was able to do
mm. That's a word right there. You need to write yourself into a dream. If y'all don't write nothing else down
it.
tonight, you need to make sure you write yourself into your dream. Dr. Ramantal, any comments or questions that you have?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask a little bit more about the Do Remember Me project because it sounds so interesting having the youth connect with someone internationally. What did they do? Like what types of things or projects or how did they connect? Was it just sort of getting to know what they do in as a young person in their country and vice versa? Or how did that work?
So I always make a curriculum and I use the UN's SDGs, which are their goals for education, women's rights, um, livable wages, those types of things,
Hmm.
because this generation is so large that they need to start thinking about them now.
Yeah.
Um, and the one thing they all had amongst them was a cell phone. I kept this real simple, a cell phone.
Yeah.
If you have a cell phone and you download this app, we can call Paris. Paris is now at your fingertips. What are the questions you would ask? So once we get past hello, then learning hello in that language, then learning social graces, because there are things that need to be discussed beforehand, like certain topics I wasn't allowed to talk about, which was fine, because when we get to the nitty of the gritty, kids gonna say what they're gonna say. It's whatever's important to them, and what I found to be most important to them was being heard and taken seriously.
Mhm.
So giving them giving them the opportunity to use their mobile phone to shoot, to be the journalist, to be the author of the story, to creatively tell the story, and then have a place where they're getting pieces. So the kid in Philadelphia decides that they're to film their class rehearsing a play, right? And it's a play one of the other students wrote, and it resonates deeply with them, right? So deeply that they want to do a story about it. They they interview the author. They take a couple snippets of, excuse me, of the play. They load it up on the designated area that I have for everybody around the world to put their pieces.
Mhm.
Now you have someone from Nigeria that has created some music, who has had this groundbreaking discovery for, refracting light. Then you have the kid in Canada who is writing about the connection between the identification cards they carry there and the ones they had formerly had to carry in South Africa. Now you have all of this sitting together, and you have all of these kids being able to access it and then use something from using all of that information to create something new.
Mm.
That's like putting a kid in a candy store.
Mhm.
And then they're also adding their own twist to it.
Mhm.
So they have multiple ways of using this information and creating something collectively and individually.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
so beautiful. Now, didn't you do something with Sundance?
I won Sundance with Do Remember Me.
Mhm. She gonna sit there all humble and whatnot. I gotta throw this stuff in the fire. Look. Okay, go ahead, brother Moja. Get her.
No, I'm just listening because as an artist, you understand the primary job of an artist is to tell stories of history, culture, and what's going on. Because if we think about it, um, the Christian Bible is a storybook,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a storybook that we use to guide our lives and the way we live our lives and stuff like that. Because you go into any of the New Testament and you read the stories in there. So as an artist, our responsibility is to tell stories that impacts people, that activates people, that gives people a place to stop and think about life, love, and this everything they could think of. Because without an artist, if you take the artist out of a culture, and we have to remember that, because when Africa was invaded, the first thing they did was get rid of the libraries and the artists, because they wanted to control the story, right? We hear about how they burned the libraries, they burned the books and stuff like that, because once you have an artist in your community, you have uh, you have someone who is giving you a reason to live, right? Because it's giving you in Africa, we talk about the griots. The griots went from village to village and telling the stories. And when the griots came into the village, everyone would gather to hear this griot tell the story from the travels.
Mm.
So as I'm listening to her talking about, now we use the internet, we use the cell phone to connect artists from all these young people. They're telling their story. They become an artist. They're telling stories. The greatest movies are stories that someone wrote.
Mhm.
right? You might not like it, but it's a story that an artist wrote.
Mhm.
And so as you are training these young minds and how to tell their story, then you're giving them a viable way to live. It's no longer a hobby.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a viable way to live. I think
Mhm.
that's very important because I grew up, and I think all of us grew up in the generation where our parents, our grandparents said, "Oh, go get a job." That's just a lie. And when I do the film festival, I always just say, if $1 billion industry is a hobby, please give me that industry. I want
Right.
to work in that industry. So yeah, so I think it's very important. People who are listening, or if you have children at home, they like drawing and painting. That's an artist. They're painting.
Mhm.
I mean, look at you go to museums, you look at all the painting, abstract or whatever artwork on. That's someone who's painting. That's an artist. You know,
Mhm.
they take if the children take your pots and pans, start banging on it. That's an artist. That's a drummer. You know,
Mhm.
they give it, and we as African people knowing the importance of the drum to us, right?
Mhm.
So I think when you're listening to you talking, we are teaching the next generation and this generation how to use the power of an artist. One, to make a viable living, like you said, you used it to raise two boys, and people are like, what? you know, but
Mhm.
it is possible. It is really possible. There's people who have done it like you, and if we could show young people how to do it, I think we are giving them another option. We're not
Mhm.
forcing you. We're just giving you more options on your table. Just like Dr. Natasha talked about, be informed. Just
Mhm.
inform them. Give them all the options that they possibly can have. So when they do make that move, they make it correctly.
Yeah. I want to just mention over on the Instagram side of life, Mrs. Hutchie says that she sees the engagement sign that you want them to have as well. And so she gave heart hands. And then also she said, an artist is enlightenment to the community. I'm learning about poetry now and a different type of artistry. I love this conversation.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
And
Go ahead, son.
I think Dr. Walls, that's the one thing. As we move around, I mean, every night, almost every night, the majority of us sit down and watch the news. Those newsmakers, she's shaking her head.
Yeah, Look,
Oh, we listen to the
look,
radio, but
look. The majority on this call all said,
see, well, you
Does
know what? For me, I love watching the
I,
news.
I just can't invite.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
See,
does feel nervous.
yeah, and for me, I love watching the news. I love seeing how they tell the story, because I had the Dr. Walls and Ruby knows this. I had the honor of being Reverend Al Sharpton's photographer for 6 years. So I was there telling the story for people by taking pictures. And it blew my mind when I went home and watched the news and how the story was told, and it wasn't the story I saw. I was like, wait a minute, that's not what happened. I was there. And so for me now as an artist doing that stuff, I'm like, what stories am I telling people with the work I'm doing? I want to control this narrative so that way I'm looking to empower certain groups in certain ways and open their minds, because I saw myself, I saw the impact that the news had on our community because I was there and I saw it from a different perspective. And when I went home and I watched the news and television, I was like, wait a second. I used to tell my mother when she was, I said, that's not what happened. I was there. And I always figure, what is the job of the newsmakers? What is the job of the artist? What am I trying to tell you with what I'm giving you? Am I giving you an edited version or an unedited version of the story? So that way you could edit it to what you want.
Yes,
I
sir.
think
This
that's
is
very important.
Go
what
ahead, Sana.
here's the beauty of what you were saying though. As an artist, and you saw how your story having been present, that makes you then move from artist to archivist. You are
Mm-hmm.
now archiving the truth
Mm-hmm.
so that even if someone else muddies the water, we have a visual representation that can't be disputed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Especially,
You're,
especially in this time where we're talking about why southern states, you know, rewrite what
Facts.
we all know as history.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
mhm.
Um, but then there's the visual proof of the artist that now becomes an archive,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That becomes a whole different form of library.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we have to remember, as you said that, Sister Sana, is that as an artist, we have, and I said this before, we have a duty. I could call it a soul call,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure we give the information so the community could come up with their own storyline. Now, in the market in Madison Avenue, they don't want that. They want to control how you see things because they want to make money on it. They want to control the narrative of what you see. So, as an artist, you have a job to be like this or to take it wider so people could to do it. And for me as an artist, I like to do that. I like to give people, when we start Sisters in Harmony, I always talk about putting more positive images back into community on a mental, physical, and spiritual level, because I want people to start thinking for themselves instead of
Mm-hmm.
having other people control your thinking. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very important as an artist. When you look at an artist, your job as an artist is so important. It's not respected like it should be in this country. In other countries, it's highly respected. Yeah, I was
Mm-hmm.
just talking to a brother named Rich who goes to Africa to teach documentary filming. He says when he gets over there, he is not allowed to carry his bags because they see him as a teacher and he is so highly regarded that they see him. It's like if they see him carrying his bag, they are offended that
Mm-hmm.
he is carrying his own bag. So as you talk about the culture stuff in this country, it's not like that. So we have to be very mindful of what we see, the 360 degrees behind every story. There's
Mm-hmm.
360 degrees behind every story.
And it's important, right, that we recognize and we uphold the value, which is why we have shows like this to show that all of this is important. It all has value. Sana, as I was reading Miss Hutchie's comment over here on Instagram about enlightenment to the community and bringing the engagement piece. It made me think about Brother Moja and I often talk about how people will say 6 degrees of separation, but in actuality, it's 6 degrees of common ground. And in the work that you do, you were making the degrees smaller for them and saying, look, here on your phone, yes, I understand we're on Earth. There's a globe, there's the Atlantic Ocean between us and so forth. But on this phone, we can create it so that that world becomes smaller and then becomes approachable. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not going to a foreign place. I'm going where Kamal lives, right? It's now becomes a possibility for
Mhm.
me to travel and the space becomes more familiar and my courage opens up to go somewhere and have a greater impact.
Yeah, Dr. Walls, that's one of the joys I'm having doing this web series we have. We have 6 countries in Africa we're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each country, someone is telling me about their culture and their language. I'm like, okay, please forgive me. For 300 years, my African tongue has been taken away from me. So now I'm in Tanzania and they're telling me these words. I'm in Zimbabwe, they're telling me these words. I'm in South Africa, they're telling me that. I'm like, I love it because all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it's like the world's been opened up to me because every country I go to in Africa of this web series we're doing, I'm learning new words.
Mm-hmm.
I said the word brother. The guy in Zimbabwe said, "Oh, we're gonna call you brother means Mokama over here." So he calls me. He says Mokama Umoja, brother Umoja. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So when I talk to him, I'm trying to remember the words he's telling me. Like, so yeah. So as an artist, we have this awesome power in our hands to control the narrative, and I think for me, it humbles me that I'm very careful how I use it.
So I love the fact, right? Dr. Ramontal opened us up with traveling around the world and making sure we are physically
Mhm.
healthy and cared for everywhere that we go. And of course, you have the globe behind you, Brother Emoja. So we are all about that global reality. And then here, Sana talks about, right, the artistic health and emotional and spiritual well-being that we need to have globally through the various forms of expression. So it all comes together, and we are all capable of having our greatest life. We just have to, as Sana said, we just got to make sure we see ourselves in it. And we have to recognize ourselves and take time to get clear on what it is that we want to do. It is okay to step out of the box. You heard Dr. Ramatal here. I mean, Brother Emoja saw her stuff on social media and was like, "What is this? I got to find out what this woman is talking
Yeah.
about." And it is more extensive than what we initially imagined. He started sending me stuff. He's like, "Babe, you got to check this out." And I was like, "Okay." And I started going down the rabbit hole of her YouTube page. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." Next thing I know, I'm telling my cousin, "You got to check this out." And this information is here. And then Sana and her work is just it just keeps going and impacting people. And like I said, the fact that here she's made a living doing this, and it becomes very inspirational for people. And then she showed her children how they can make a living doing this. And Sana, real quick, to put your children on blast, and also to put you on, but where are places that you've traveled to, and where are places that your children have traveled to being artists? And then we'll get ready to wrap up and let everybody go.
Sheesh. Currently, my oldest son has traveled more places than me.
I know.
So he's been places I haven't been. Oh Lord, Chaz had, as an artist, has been to Germany, London, Spain, Nigeria, oh, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico. I'm missing some places.
And what's his artistry?
He's a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
DJ. He crafts soundscapes for people, and he also teaches at the University of Berkeley. So I'm really proud of him.
Mm-hmm.
And my baby works with me. So he's usually my camera person.
Mm-hmm.
He lets me direct and he films. So wherever I've been, he's been.
And where have you been? Just name about 4 or 5 places that your art has taken you.
Morocco, Spain, Paris, Italy twice, France a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
London. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
people who are listening, and when you are passionate about it, I love what she said. If this is where you want to make your life, you're going to sacrifice some things. Usually, when you sacrifice, you're giving up something temporarily for something greater, right? So, you're going to make whatever it is that you need to do work for you so that you are living your fullest life. In my book, The Greatest Soul Journey, I say that life is spelled LIFE, and the F stands for fullness. And if you take the F out of life, then you are living a lie. All right. So we want to make sure that you are living your full life. You have to get clear on what that means for you. It's going to be different for each of us. But we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope that this has enriched your life and helped your life become fuller. Brother Emoja, Ruby, any final words that you want to say before I ask the guests the same question and we get ready to turn it off?
Go ahead, Ruby.
Yeah. I just want to thank you. I do know about sacrificing to write, sacrificing many hours of sleep because you're just driven. And I love that about both of you. You both are just very driven, and that's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah, I agree.
Brother
Brother Moja?
Emoji? I'm
Well,
sorry, what
I just want to thank the two ladies that came on today. You gave us an opportunity to share your information with our audience listening. Sisters for Harmony is about this, sharing the
Mm-hmm.
information, building bridges. I'm not looking to fill the gap. I want to build a bridge over the gap. So thank you for helping us build another bridge, some bridges over these gaps we have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Dr. Ramontal, any additional information or contact information that you'd like to share with the people before we sign off?
Just again, Medical Tourism RN on all the platforms, and just check out the tips, comment, subscribe, and again, leave comments about what you'd like me to cover as well. And I have homework now, thanks to Sannii. I have to create my ebook. Yeah, I got to do it. I got to
I
do
love
it.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. Go on,
Thank
Sana.
you.
So
Yeah.
it's a a running joke because I tend to give people homework all the time. But it's always, from a place of love and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say thank you, Dr. Walls.
You're welcome.
On a Sunday, she's driving in her car. And we hadn't talked in over a month of Sundays, but if I never missed or skipped a beat.
Yeah.
And here we are. I am always and forever grateful to be here to share because something beautiful always grows from it.
Mm-hmm.
And my bit of advice is don't let what you sacrifice allow thorns to grow on your spine. Where you think that the sacrifice is so great that you'll never see your dream.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way of depriving yourself then it's not sacrifice. It's just harmful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of what you can live without for now to get to point B. Because my first camera, I bought through a payment plan, and that was all right. Back in the day, we used to call it layaway, but now everybody has a that's how I got my first camera. You know what I mean?
Real tough.
It wasn't like sacrificing meals or sacrificing, one jacket or something like that. It was, okay, I just got to wait a little longer. But if I stick with this payment plan, camera. So in the meantime, let me prepare for when that camera comes. Let me see what free courses are, what groups are meeting to take photographs so I can become better at it, all of those things. And then I got the camera. So, there's that prep time too. And that moment of sacrifice should be prep time. So that's my push.
Yes, thank you. Right. Delay is not denial, it is preparation. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again. You will see Sannii again because she's going to come on Planner's Knowledge Vicast to talk more about her book. You will see Dr. Ramontal again because she's going to join us next month to give us some more tidbits. And of course, you're going to see me, Ruby, and Brother Emoji again because that's just what we do. So, all right, y'all. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to Ask Dr. Walls 525. There are some other shows that will be coming up shortly. And also catch the replays. This has been a busy week for me. I had the greatest blueprint on Tuesday. I had Wealth Wednesday yesterday with Brian Brogan, and we talked about financial spring cleaning. And then last night we had Lyrical Epiphanies with Stacy Amon Yadell, and we broke down. Y'all gonna love this. We broke down the relationship aspects, the lyrical aspects of If Your Heart Isn't in It, Why Don't You Tell Me So by Atlantic Star. We went there. And it was fantastic, very insightful. So there's a whole bunch popping up. Dr. Wade jumped on real quick and she said, preparation in the waiting. Exactly. Exactly. All right, y'all. Thank you for your time. To my guests, for our audience, thank you so much for your time. And as always, God bless and continue to live your greatest life. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.